today.
Okay, good.
Islam.
Everything so you're supposed to have
You
your
own
own
a
place
place
now.
now.
Own a place.
Like a long time ago, I think you were saying that have your own center building.
Yeah, but people don't support, yo.
Oh, see?
So no center are going.
He is bound to the continent by heritage.
Oh yeah.
Nobody in the black community at all, no?
Nope. Especially black people. They're the last people to support.
Yeah. Well, that
Right.
makes sense.
Islam Moors. So we're starting off today, November 27th, with Color of Law, FBI. So just to put it on the record for everybody, Islam to Sister Alzira for posting this information that the FBI is putting out on Color of Law. So this is again give thanks to Alzira Bey and Islam to the two more that's on time on class. Color of Law abuses. U.S. law enforcement officers and other officials like judges, prosecutors, and security guards have been given tremendous power by local, state, and federal government agencies. Authority they must have to enforce the law to ensure justice in our country. These powers include the authority to detain and arrest suspects, to search and seize property, to bring criminal charges, to make rulings in court, and to use deadly force in certain situations. Preventing abuse of this authority, however, is equally necessary to the health of our nation's democracy. That's why it is a federal crime for anyone acting under color of law willfully to deprive or conspire to deprive a person of a right protected by the Constitution or U.S. law. Color of law simply means that the person is using authority given to him or her by a local, state, or federal government agency. Let me repeat that part again. Color of law simply means that the person is using authority given to him or her by a local, state, or federal government agency.
So a local, state, federal government agency is not good enough.
Is not, yeah, they're de facto,
Whoa,
basically.
that's what
Basically, the FBI is saying that federal, local, and state government agencies are de facto. Right?
Yeah, for real though.
For real, right? All right. The FBI is the lead federal agency for investigating color of law abuses, which include acts carried out by government officials operating both within and beyond the limits of their lawful authority. Off-duty conduct may be covered if the perpetrator asserted his or her official status in some way. During 2009, the FBI investigated 385 color of law cases. Most of these crimes fall into 5 broad areas: excessive force, sexual assaults, false arrest and fabrication of evidence, deprivation of property, and failure to keep from harm. Excessive force. In making arrests, maintaining order, and defending life, law enforcement officers are allowed to use whatever force is reasonably necessary. The breadth and scope of the use of force is vast, from just the physical presence of the officer to the use of deadly force. Violations of federal law occur when they can be shown that the force used was willfully unreasonable or excessive. Sexual assaults by officials acting under color of law can happen in jails, during traffic stops, or in other settings where officials might use their position of authority to coerce an individual into sexual compliance. The compliance is generally gained because of a threat of an official action against the person if he or she doesn't comply. Big time.
Whoa! That's huge.
Right? False arrest and fabrication of evidence. The Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guarantees the right against unreasonable searches or seizures. A law enforcement official using authority provided under the color of law is allowed to stop individuals and under certain circumstances to search them and retain their property. It is in the abuse of that discretionary power, such as an unlawful detention or illegal confiscation of property, that a violation of a person's civil rights may occur. Fabricating evidence against or falsely arresting an individual who violates the color of law statute, taking away the person's right of due process on unreasonable seizure. In the case of deprivation of property, the color of law statute would be violated by unlawfully obtaining or maintaining a person's property which oversteps or misapplies the official's authority. The 14th Amendment secures the right to due process. The 8th Amendment prohibits the use of cruel and unusual punishment. During an arrest or detention, alright fam.
Yes.
I mean, Saturday.
During an arrest or detention, these rights can be violated by the use of force amounting to punishment. Summary judgment. The person accused of the crime must be allowed the opportunity to have a trial and should not be subjected to punishment without having been afforded the opportunity of the legal process. Failure to keep from harm. The public counts on its law enforcement officials to protect local communities. If it's shown that an official willfully failed to keep an individual from harm, that official can be in violation of the color of law statute. Filing a complaint. To file a color of law complaint, contact your local FBI office by telephone, in writing, or in person. The following information should also be provided. All identifying information for the victim or victims. As much identifying information as possible for the subjects, including position, rank, and agency employed. Date and time of incident. Location of incident. Name, addresses, and telephone numbers of any witnesses. A complete chronology of events, and any report numbers and charges with respect to the incident. You may also contact the United States Attorney's Office in your district or send a written complaint to Assistant Attorney General, Civil Rights Division, Criminal Section, 950 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest Washington, D.C. 20530. FBI investigations vary in length. Once our investigation is complete, we forward the findings to the U.S. Attorney General's office within the local jurisdiction and the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., which decide whether or not to proceed toward persecution and handle any persecutions that follow. Title 42, Section 141 makes it unlawful for state or local law enforcement agencies makes it unlawful for state or local law enforcement agencies to allow officers to engage in a pattern or practice of conduct that deprives persons of rights protected by the Constitution or U.S. laws. This law, commonly referred to as the Police Misconduct Statute. So you can write that down just so you could go research that. The Police Misconduct Statute gives the Department of Justice authority to seek civil remedies in cases where law enforcement agencies have policies or practices that foster a pattern of misconduct by employees. This action is directed against an agency, not against individual officers. The type of issues which may initiate a pattern and practice investigation include lack of supervision or monitoring of officers' actions, lack of justification or reporting by officers on incidents involving the use of force, lack of or improper training of officers, and citizen complaint process that treat complaints on adversaries. Under Title 42, Section 1997, the Department of Justice has the ability to initiate civil actions against mental hospitals, retardation facilities, jails, prisons, nursing homes, and juvenile detention facilities when there are allegations of systematic deprivations of constitutional rights of institutionalized persons.
Wow.
So the FBI came out. This has probably been up on their website for forever, and they're letting us know that the power that majority of these local, state, or federal government agencies have is de facto in nature. So to prove that, we're going to go to Toronto and we're going to talk about the mayor who was ordered out of office for conflict of interest. Right? So mayor vows to appeal ruling kicking him out of office. And keep in mind, there's a lot of puns in here with regard to kicking and sports and football or whatever, because he's a football coach, right? So the mayor of the city was a football coach, and he basically siphoned money from the yeah, he fumbled. Political fumble, right? Pun intended. Right? So he basically took some money from the city and applied it to his football team, right? So they're saying that's a conflict because you're playing both sides of the fence or whatever, right? So they had the court case today, and then or the court case yesterday or something, and the ruling came out today. All right. So a defiant Mayor Rob Ford vowed to fight on against a court ruling punting him from office and blaming left-wing politics for the case against him. This is CP24 paper, and Jonathan Jenkins is the who wrote the article. I'm going to appeal it, and I'm going to get on with my job, Ford said as he headed into his office at City Hall Monday afternoon. A massive crush of reporters surrounding him. This comes down to left-wing politics, he said. The left wing wants me out of here, and they'll do anything in their power. The court ruling Monday said Ford violated conflict of interest rules and must therefore be removed from office. The decision was suspended, though, for 14 days, and Ford was not barred from returning for office in the future. Ford said he was a fighter, and he had done a lot of good for the city in his first 2 years as mayor, and wouldn't back down in any way from regaining his position. I'm going to hold on to my job, and if they do for some reason get me out, I'll be running back at them, he said. If there's a by-election, my name is first on the ballot. The 14-day suspension of the decision would allow Ford to both appeal the ruling and apply for a judicial stay that would, if granted, keep him in office until the appeal can be heard. Otherwise, City Council, which meets Thursday with Ford still in charge, would have to decide whether to appoint a replacement or hold an election to replace the mayor. Right? So the judicial body, right, is coming into the corporate body, and they're making decisions, right? Which is the same conflict of interest that they're trying to charge the mayor for, right? And then the same conflict of interest that they're charging the mayor for when you're in the court, and then you have the judge who's a member of the Law Society of Canada, and then you have a prosecutor, provincial prosecutor, who's a member of the Law Society of Canada, and then Rob Ford has an attorney who's a member of the Law Society of Canada. That's a conflict of interest, because all three of them belong to the same school. Not only that, all those people, the attorney, provincial prosecutor, judge, magistrate, whatever, are officers of the court. So that's double conflict of interest. Before the trial even started to see if we should get him out of power or not, it's a conflict of interest from the start. And when we look at everybody else's case, right? Everybody else has cases or whatever. Same situation. But then when you go to the Criminal Code of Canada, the Criminal Code of Canada is telling you that there's a section in there that de facto law, people who are in possession of sovereign power but hold a de facto position can't make any rulings or can't talk or can't do anything with regard to law. And we have a right not to even be down with them. when they start exercising this de facto position, right? So if we realize that there's color of law going on, right? So color is fake law, or fake or artificial, semblance, not real. So if law has been colored, that's fraud. But fraud has no statute of limitation. Fraud will continue going on as long as nobody says there's fraud going on. And this is the quote unquote activity that the Moors took out of the activity that everybody's supposed to be doing. Because if you have a situation with this corporate entity that's bothering you, harassing you, or whatever, you're supposed to come to your Grand Sheikh, Grand Governor, Grand Mufti, whoever, make your complaint there, and then the body, which is your representative that you put to be Grand Sheikh or Grand Governor or whatever, they're supposed to take your situation and deal with it because you're a member, right? And you're a member of not only an organization, you're also a member of the government, because the structure of the temple is to teach us government, self-government, to teach us local government. That's why we have a constitution, divine constitution, that is for us personally, individuals in the temple. But nationally, there's a national constitution that's tied in, because the domestic local constitution of the Moors says that we are part and parcel of this said government. So because we're part and parcel, that means anything that the government's doing that is de jure and right and for the preservation of inalienable rights and all that, yeah, we're down with it. But as soon as they start pushing democracy, we already know that that's color of law, and don't expect too much from them. On both sides, whether it's us going to them and trying to get remedy, or whether it's us standing on our own and expecting them to, take their shoes off, go on their knees and start doing because we have fezzes on and we're in court, which isn't going to happen. There's ample Moors that you could talk to, ask about that perspective, right? Like saying that, yes, fam, saying that, why don't they recognize us, and how come they're abusing us, and looking at it from the perspective that, if you're saying that they're colored, right? If those people are colored, how is it that we're going to expect something de jure from a colored position?
Exactly.
And if we're de jure, why would we want anything from somebody that holds a colorable position as far as recognition, right? It's not going to be in our best interest, right? So the individuals who tell Moors that are members of the temple, well, Noble Drew Ali didn't teach civics and blah, 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 is because they're under misprision of treason. Right? That's what they're exercising. Right? So, misprision of treason. There is a well-established law in our jurisprudence which places an affirmative duty on all of us to expose any treasonous or criminal act which comes to our attention. Failure to do so is defined as misprison or misprison. It is the duty of every good citizen, knowing of a treason or felony having been committed, to inform a magistrate, silently to observe the commission of a felony without using any endeavors to apprehend the offender is a misprision. This has been codified in the United States Code, Title 18, Crimes and Criminal Procedure. Misprision of treason applies to officials who have taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. Misprision of felony applies to all citizens. Misprision of treason. Whoever, owing allegiance to the United States and having knowledge of the commission of any treason against him, conceals and does not, as soon as may be, disclose and make known the same to the President or some judge of the United States, or to the governor, or to some judge or justice of a particular state, is guilty of misprision of treason, and shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 7 years or both.
How do you spell misprison?
Misprision. Misprision. Right? So it is the duty of every good citizen, knowing of treason or felony having been committed, to inform a magistrate. So Noble Ali said that you have a divine constitution. And in the divine constitution, Act 1 says that the Grand Sheik and the Grand Chairman is empowered to make law and enforce laws and all that, right? So that's the elected official office of the Moorish Science Temple of America, set up by the Prophet. So Grand Sheik, Grand Governor, Grand Treasurer, whatever, all those titles have certain power to them, right? So now if you come into the movement and say, well, you know what, I really don't like what Moors are doing in the temple, they're passive and, you know, it's like church or whatever, I'm going to start my own organization. And then you go start your own organization following the same principles of the Prophet, but you don't mention the Prophet and you don't, you know, do anything, and you have titles and whatever. When you go exercising, the power of that title is diminished. Because you're taking a concept that's not yours. On top of that, you're not demonstrating the concept the way that it's supposed to be demonstrated. You're making up your own stuff and thinking that it's going to have the same power as the organic structure, right? And this is why all these groups fail. Because all of these groups, black, Negro, colored, African, Nubian, blah, blah, blah groups, got their idea from Noble Ali to have this group that's going to be for the redemption of people. And anybody could come here and they could learn anything they need to know because, you know, slave master did this to us, blah, blah. So now we have the group. But it's funny that none of these people that are part of these groups, they don't talk about James Traficant Jr. and his speech to the Congress about the United States being a fraud and in name only. And it's not a government, and they're bankrupt. They're in Chapter 11 bankruptcy right now. Everybody who has any type of allegiance with them are severing ties with them and trying to leave them alone to sail on their own, because they're willing to put bombs on themselves, blow themselves up to take them out. That's where it is right now in the world with international communities that have became allies with this U.S. democracy, which is a fraud, which is misprision of treason if those allies don't say, hey, you know, these guys are running a fraud over there, right? But everybody in the world knows that the jurisdiction above Mexico, right, belongs to the Moors. And that's the North Gate. And that's Maghrib al-Aqsa, Morocco, the farthest west. Like, everybody in the world knows that. But if the people here don't know that, and they're saying, oh, we're black, Negro, colored, blah, 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 and we came from here and we came from there, and this country and that country, and all those countries that they say they come from are corporations, right? That never existed in the time frame mentally that you're trying to put people back to say, okay, well, yeah, we came from there. Okay, well, you know, Ethiopia was, like, that was, even though they say Ethiopia is ancient, there's ancient names more ancient than Ethiopia, right? So if you're going to identify with Ethiopia which when you look up Ethiopia, they'll tell you it comes from Ethiops. But then you're going to say that, oh, well, no, Ethiopia is the only uncolonized nation in the continent. Like, you're lying to yourself, especially if you're calling it Ethiopia. An international community who knows that that's Kush, Abyssinia, Nubia, Sudan, whatever, they just go along with you and play your game, you know what I mean? Right? And just keep getting rich based on our ignorance. Because while we're saying that we're coming from Africa, you know, Asians are also saying that they come from Africa. And they're going there claiming land, getting land, starting businesses, whatever. Europeans are saying they're from Africa. And they're going there claiming land, blah, blah, and getting everything. Right? But then it's strange, some reason, these people who apparently were brought over there, brought from there on a slave ship over here, they can't even go back there and make a claim. Right? They can't. And if they do, it's going to be under some fraud of the U.S. democracy, Liberia, and all these created jurisdictions. Right? So, when you have people who do not bring attention to fraudulent activity, right? They're practicing misprision of treason. And none of these black groups are going to bring attention to the fraud of the democracy because that's what funds them. All of them. Including the Moorish Science Temple of America, which, if they're in misprision of treason, right, like Brother Todd was saying when we went to Jersey, then they quit their job. And we can't continue to call them, I can't continue to call No Shakir the best, place to go get books in the city, right, when he's in Chapter 11 bankruptcy and CA and all these people are coming at him because, they found stacks of papers like this that he's been committing fraud. Right? Like, I'm putting myself in, I'm down with the conspiracy if I push his agenda, knowing that there's fraud going on. Right? So this is where the FBI is going, that they're saying, okay, well, we're the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Right? So we're taking it up on ourselves to address these things called color of law abuses. And it's on their website, which means that it's public record. Anybody can go there, look at it, and it's there. Like on their website. Now,
what's their website?
FBI.gov. FBI.gov. Right? Now what's interesting is where this is in the website. Right? Now remember, we're talking about, the name of today's class is that he is bound to the continent by heritage. Right? So everybody knows, right? Because we talk about it enough, and if you don't know by now, then you have serious problems. We talk about King Alfred Plan. Right? And in King Alfred Plan, in the preliminary memo, Department of Defense, this report is now in this memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is now in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage, and knows that political asylum will not be available to him in other countries. And this is 1969 military classified document that Negro, black, colored people weren't privy to, because this executive order was authorized 1969 to counteract the minority, blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites. So they don't have access to this info. Everybody else in the world has access to it because they're not the minority. So it's accessible. Moors have access to it because we're not minority, so the information is accessible. But if you are part of the fraud, you just diffuse all your power.
This one is to take down the numbers, the King Alfred Plan?
Yeah, to get rid of the numbers, right? In case there's a race war. or in the case of a race war, this is how they're going to bring down the numbers to squash the quote unquote emergency, right? Yeah, the crisis, right? So what's interesting is that so you go to home, and then there's about us and what we investigate, and then civil rights, and then under civil rights it's talking about color of law, right?
What we investigate, and then civil rights.
So under civil rights is where it talks about color of law. But in this whole thing about color of law, they're talking about constitutional things. They're talking about law enforcement officers, where where if it's officer, then that means you're talking about an official, right? You're not talking about somebody who gets a job, that goes and signs up to be a whatever. If you have the title of officer, then that means you're official and you are elected to be in that position as an officer. But if you are claiming to be an officer when you just went and filled out an application and got a job, that's color. And that's color of authority, that's color of law, that's color of jurisdiction, that's fraud in every sense of the word. Right? So why do they have this thing under? Because if this is the Federal Bureau of Investigations and they're talking about people's constitutional rights and people having the right that's protected by the Constitution, and these local, state, federal government agencies can't infringe on that right, but they have it under civil rights, then they're talking subliminally to Negro black colored people. Because Negro black colored people are the only people who fight for civil rights. So they're breaking this thing down to the lowest common denominator in order to get Negro black colored people to get on board with understanding what's going on. This is the FBI. Who everybody, Hoover and and they want to take out black people and they did this, they did that. Okay, well, they're telling you black people how to get the remedy. They're even telling you where you're gonna go to sue them. They're even telling you where to go, where you write your complaint. All these black people talking about police beat them up and police did that to them and police did that to them. Okay, well, the FBI is telling you that those are color of law abuses by local, state, or federal government agencies that are using color of law and color of authority to abuse people's rights. FBI is coming out and saying it. And nobody's going to go with what the FBI is saying. They're going to find every reason why they can't go with it, whether it's make up stuff or whatever. But the FBI being who they are, right? The Federal Bureau of Investigations, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, right? They're letting the people know the jurisdiction that they're dealing with. But remember, always have in your mind color of law, because Federal Express calls themselves federal and they have nothing to do with the government. But they call themselves federal. And we're not going to them about, fix the laws and change the laws, please, Federal Express. Right? So we have to recognize how deep the color of law goes. That the color of law crosses thresholds that we might think, aren't thresholds that should be crossed, right?
No, that's too much. No, that's too much. No.
Right? Yeah. Right? Right? So we're gonna say want to send an Islam to Brother Tez Bey for this one, right? So just talking about color of law and how many people want to help us, right? How many people outside want to? So we already said, okay, FBI is assistant, because everybody knows that black people fight for civil rights and they've always fought for civil rights. Always. That's their thing. All right. Under the section of civil rights, the FBI is talking about color of law abuses. So they're bringing people who are under civil rights or whatever to a certain level, right? They're letting them go and research United States codes and stuff like that, so they can, be clear as to what the issue is. That we can't just say civil rights. They abuse my civil rights. Well, they're going to continue to get abused because law is specific, and somebody abusing your civil rights, that's not specific. That's very vague. Somebody could abuse your civil rights by not saying hi to you in the morning, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. Right? But they're breaking it down, so you're right. It's just like when you like why is it that you're gonna go click home? Right? Why are you gonna go click contact us if it's not to go get the contact information? Right? Like if they say contact us, click here. You're not to click there and then go send them an email about, well, I clicked the contact part and I couldn't find the information about the color of law abuses that whatever. Right? Because everything's being broken down when you click. Right? You can have a broad perspective. You go in Google, you put in whatever. Constitution. Click. It's going to give you a breakdown. And then when you click that, that's going to give you a breakdown. And then you click that, and that's going to give you a breakdown, and you continue getting breakdowns. Okay, well, they broke it down to the lowest level that it could be broken down to. That civil rights has nothing to do with anything. What you're really fighting is color of law abuses. That's really your argument as a Negro black color person. That's where you're supposed to be. Forget civil rights. There's FBI, right? So FBI want to help. Negro black color people still face it, because I'm sure that's been on the website for forever. Right? And again, because more study, we already know about that. So that's not any new information to us. Like, we know about color of law because we deal with that every day. Right? Algonquin people adopt Haitian Canadians. This is November 19th, 2012. Article by Teresa Smith, Ottawa Citizen newspaper. The traditional chief of the Algonquin people has symbolically adopted members of Canada's Haitian community living in its traditional territory, a vast expanse stretching as far west as Saskatchewan and as far south as North Dakota. For Pascal Anual, 50, who was born in Haiti but now lives in Montreal, the adoption means that those Haitian Canadians now have the same hunting and fishing rights and ability to cross freely into the U.S. as members of Canada's First Nations. A nice notion perhaps, but legally one that holds little water, says an expert. Canada has given Aboriginals special rights, Richard Van Loon said, but the government has believed those rights cannot be given freely to any other group. The adoption ceremony took place Sunday on Victoria Island in the middle of the Ottawa River in the bright sun and brisk cold of Sunday morning. Traditional Grand Chief, right, of the Algonquin Federation, Leo Setush, listed the commonalities between his people and the people of Haiti. Both groups, he says, have a great respect for their ancestors. We share a traditional, spiritual, and common values, such as great respect for Mother Earth, he said. We both survived colonization and secretly protected our traditional ceremonies through generations. Earlier at the Canadian Museum of Toronto in Gatineau, Quebec, the two groups had exchanged sacred objects. The Algonquin leaders presented the Haitian leaders with an eagle feather, and in return they received a small feather from Haiti, a Haitian flag, a conch shell, and a drapeau, which is a sequined piece of cloth used in high voodoo ceremonies. Yeah. And Newell, who traveled from Montreal to witness the ceremony, called the adoption unprecedented. It means I can go to their house and they can come to mine. We're brothers and sisters, and we mean it. But for Anul, the promise goes further. It is a welcoming, but it also includes rights and responsibilities. Responsibilities to be stewards of the earth and to stand with the Algonquin nations, and rights to hunt on Algonquin lands and cross into the U.S. without a passport. It is going to be controversial and it may not be accepted, she said, but for us, what is important is the gesture of the word. That comes before the formalities. Seta said for us, brothers and sisters is a real thing. They're part of a greater Algonquin family now. They're in the circle with us. The Algonquin family includes 143 First Nations stretching from Saskatchewan in the west to North Dakota in the south. Although each group, such as Naskapi, Cree, Ojibwe, Algonquin, Atikamu, Innu, and Abenaki, among others, have their own traditions, they all fall under the larger umbrella of the Algonquin family. We've just adopted the Haitian community like our own children. They are an integral part of this community now, and this land is their land. However, it is unclear how the adoption will stand up legally. Van Loon, who was an associate deputy minister with the Department of Indian Affairs from 1984 to 1994, said the government's position traditionally has been that if there are rights, and the government is always guarded about what Aboriginal rights actually consist of, they belong to Canadian Aboriginal people, but they cannot be transferred by Canadian Aboriginal people to somebody else. While he stressed that they could not speak for the current government and could only give his informed opinion, he said the Haitians would still be subject to broader Canadian law, not to any rights which the Algonquin people may have. But for Shitush, speaking on land, he says his people never ceded. He has every right to welcome the Haitian community into the Algonquin family and confer upon them rights of brothers and sisters. We are a sovereign people. We can do what we want. The government of Canada can do what it wants, he said. His twin brother, Omer Shetush, the traditional grand chief of the Innu people, said Sunday that the ceremony was about more than just Algonquin and Haitian people. This is about all human beings. It's about saying that we are all one people and we need to start acting that way. And you could, if you have any comments or anything like that, you could email tesmith@ottawacitizen.com. tesmith@ottawacitizen.com. Right? So we're talking about the traditional chief, right? We're talking about Algonquins adopting Haitian Canadians. But then in the article, it doesn't make any reference to Haitian Canadians. It only makes reference to Haitians, which means Haitians are a separate jurisdiction than Haitian Canadians. Or they would have said Haitian Canadians throughout the whole article, right? The Algonquin people have their own traditions, and all these groups, Naskapi, Cree, Ojibwe, Algonquin, etc., fall under the larger umbrella of the Algonquin family. So that means the Algonquin is not a tribe of Indians. Algonquin is a confederacy of different tribal groups that were termed Indians by the colonizers. And when you do the research on Iroquois, they're going to tell you the exact same story as the Algonquin, that there's all these different tribes or whatever, but all of them are collectively under Iroquois. cultures and customs or whatever, right? So they know, one, that so-called Negro, black, colored people are indigenous, or they wouldn't have said come into the tribe, right? They know that they're the Shemnites, which means they're the later indigenous people. And how we know that they're the later indigenous people, because the real indigenous people are called sheiks, not chiefs.
What do you mean by later indigenous? I don't get that.
Like the indigenous people that came out of the original indigenous people, right? So when we look at Olmec head, doesn't look like people that they say are the Six Nations or the natives or whatever, because those people are later. Those people are modern
Right.
Indians,
So
modern indigenous people. They're not the original ones. They're a branch of, they're a grafting of the original. Because if you look at the original, just look at Olmec head.
right. So the original Olmecans and the indigenous now are people who sprang from that land
Right.
from beginning.
From beginning.
Now these people that we're talking about today, the Algonquins and the Iroquois and all
Yeah.
the other federations,
Yeah.
who actually are you? What you're saying is that they are they're the product of intermixing with the Moors and the indigenous people,
Right.
and someone else.
Right. Or not only someone else, could be other peoples.
Yeah.
Because people been coming over here.
Right.
Right?
Yes, but these people that we're talking about now, the Algonquins and the First Nations people,
Yeah.
quote unquote, are people who were here before the Europeans.
Right.
You know, so my question is,
Who they mix with.
well, first of all, first they said that they came across Bering Strait.
Right. But
You know.
but when now okay, so they came across the Bering Strait. But where'd they come from? Like, yeah, they came across the Bering Strait. Excellent. We see how you got over here,
Exactly.
but where'd you come from?
Well, that's what my question is. Are they not indigenous to Asia?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Then they came across, and I don't know what,
Right.
how
And comes back to the same thing. We're bound to the continent by heritage.
right,
Haitians are from this land.
right,
The so-called Algonquin people that they're showing
right,
they're not from here. But
mean
they can
indigenous.
can school the Haitians on who they really are by adopting them into the tribe. Right?
Yeah.
Because remember, everybody's fed up with Canada U.S. and everybody wants those twin towers to fall.
Sure.
They're at the end of their rope. These people have made money, went bankrupt, created new currency, went bankrupt, created more currency, got other people in the world to be down with the fake currency, credit, debit, swipe your card, Dexit cards, whatever, right? Everybody now realizes that, hold on a second, there's two seals on the back of the dollar bill of this government. One seal is quiet, you don't hear anything from it at all. And then one seal is going around the world bombing, pillaging, and claiming that they are the United States. Right? And that they have the authority to do that because, they have a president and the president said, and this guy put out an order saying that we can go do this and do that. But being that they're foreigners, just like the Algonquins, being that they're foreigners, all they can do is naturalize people. They can't really give people the fullness, right? So when we realize that it's more a spiritual move, right? It's not, let's, because the political arena that's dealing with this matter, right? the political arena dealing with this matter is colored. Because they tell you right in here that the man who, Van Loon, Associate Deputy Minister of the Department of Indian Affairs,
Again, Indian.
right? Again, Indian.
Earlier on in the article, you talked about something about the rights of the Algonquins and what they were. I don't remember the
Right.
exact.
The hunting and fishing rights.
Yes,
Right.
but it's kind of I don't remember it. I don't know if you can read it again, but it sounded as though they were saying that these were rights that were granted to these people, which we all know rights are not something that
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
Right.
What he was saying is like, you have rights, but you don't have the right to give it to you.
Right.
Because I said so.
Well, exactly, but
Yeah.
even further than that, right? That part I got, but I think when he first started talking about the rights of the Algonquin, it kind of sounded as though they were saying that these are rights that were conferred upon them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what
That's
I
what
mean?
I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
He gave
Yeah.
the Algonquin, the Don Presser
The
gave
right
the
to
Algonquin rights.
Well, they
And he-
can't do that.
Right.
You know,
That's
that's the
what-
whole
that's
But this
point.
this this is the whole thing about the whole color of law
Exactly.
And there's another one too, what they have with the women. If those so-called First Nations women marry a white man, they're not First Nations no more.
and right.
So all the rights that he gave them, they don't have it anymore.
And that
Right.
means it's not a right to begin with. You
That-
can't take
Exactly.
somebody's rights
Exactly.
away from them.
Right.
Exactly.
You see?
Exactly.
So this
They're
is.
only giving you what they want to give you to play with you.
I don't know. This is the first I'm hearing about this situation.
Yeah, this is new. This is November 19th.
Exactly. So I don't know if it's like you said, a spiritual thing where it's actually done
Well-
with.
Well, the reason why I say that it's a spiritual thing is because
They said it
in the
was-
picture, right, the people who are brought in, the sisters wearing a turban, and then the brothers wearing a fez.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Right? So there's the chief right there. Right? There's the chief with the feathers, and then there's the brother in wearing the quote unquote mud cloth,
Oh, Clem,
right?
Bogolan.
And there's the sister, right, that got adopted into the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Now if you tell me that that's not a fez, then you have problems. Right? Because we already showed you, King Oyo of Uganda, that fez is African culture. And these people, Haitians, are bound to the continent by heritage. Bound to the continent by heritage. And political asylum will not be available to them in other countries. So the only option they have is either be property, be property of the corporate government,
Mm-hmm.
or get back into your indigenous status. Any way you could do it, any means necessary, you better get back into your aboriginal status.
True. But this situation that we're looking at today with the adoption of these quote unquote Haitians or Haitian Canadians or however they're being termed into the Algonquin Federation or tribe or family, to me, again, if it's a symbolic gesture, it's all well and good. But there's the other side of the coin where, again, we're talking where we're always looking to belong.
Right.
You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And if we're the indigenous people, and these Haitians or these Haitian Canadians are the indigenous people,
Yeah.
then to me it's a step backward for you
Right.
to try to be
To be
adopting
brought back
yourself into
your tribe.
You know, so
Right.
I mean, I have
Right.
I have no
No,
problem
exactly.
with the symbolism,
Right.
with the
But
you know the
the
family.
practicality of it
Exactly.
is that there's compromise. There's compromise and there's some conspiracy.
Something's happening.
Haiti's rightful status is superior to an Algonquin.
Yeah, to an Algonquin. Right? But again, it's a spiritual move on all levels because the Algonquins are going to be adopting them in, which means that, you know, they're going to have this being of power now part of their tribe, right? Because they know that, you know, the Moors are, right? They already know, right? If we bring him in, you know, we're going to we're gonna be able to get this in the newspaper. Because he's supposed to be Haitian. What does he know about the Algonquins and whatever, right? And then they're gonna go to Ottawa to do it. You know, they're gonna go to the capital to do it, to perform the ritual, right? Now again, if we go to the Constitution Act of Canada, right, which, quote unquote, it says the rights of the Aboriginal peoples are being upheld, right? Section 35, the existing Aboriginal and treaty rights of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada are hereby recognized and affirmed. Right?
But
In
what-
this act, Aboriginal peoples of Canada includes the Indian, Inuit, and Métis peoples of Canada. For greater certainty, in subsection 1, quote-unquote, treaty rights includes rights that now exist by way of land claim agreements or may be so acquired. Notwithstanding any other provision of this act, the Aboriginal treaty rights referred to in subsection 1 are guaranteed equally to male and female persons. The Government of Canada and the provincial governments are committed to the principle that before any amendment is made to Class 24 of Section 91 of the Constitution Act to Section 25 of this Act or this part, a constitutional conference that includes in its agenda an item relating to the proposed amendment composed of the Prime Minister of Canada and the First Ministers of the province will be convened by the Prime Minister of Canada, and the Prime Minister of Canada will invite representatives of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada to participate in the discussions on that item. And then the Criminal Code of Canada, Section 15, says obedience to de facto law. No person shall be convicted of an offense in respect to any act or omission in obedience to the laws for the time being made and enforced by the persons in de facto possession of sovereign power in and over the place where the act or omission occurs. So with the rights of Aboriginal peoples, including the rights of including Indian, Inuit, Métis people, blah blah, Six Nations and all that, right? From the jump, this is an act. So it has no power of law. It's fraud.
And it's colored.
It's colored.
When you start calling
So
people all them
when you
names.
start calling people all those labels, persons in there, and first you're gonna say it's the Aboriginal peoples,
Yeah.
but then in it you're gonna say persons, which is color.
And you're
Because
gonna-
person is a natural person
Yeah.
or a corporate person, and if they're not specific with what they mean, then this contract is void. Because all contracts have to be specific, everything has to be lined out to the T, no, non-dotted I's and uncrossed T's. Right? Everything has to be on point. Especially if this is something for the rights of Aboriginal peoples of Canada. We're not just talking about a little group or some tribe of people. We're talking about all the people in this jurisdiction that claim to be Aboriginal or Indigenous, Indian, Métis, whatever. Right?
Yeah, but then you were talking the other night, I think you were just, but I don't remember, about specifically how Aboriginal is defined in Canada.
Right.
Apparently it has to do with how long you've been in the country. And it's not the same thing as Indigenous.
As
They're
Indigenous.
two different,
Right.
Two different
And
definitions.
then it's not going to be the same thing as Aboriginal either. Because Aboriginal in Canada
Mhm.
is just talking about that jurisdiction, not Aboriginals just completely or Indigenous people completely, right? Like with the Algonquins, right? Because they know, just like they were talking about, we know about our history of our ancient foremothers and forefathers. We know about that history. So why don't you just come and be an Algonquin Haitian, right? Because you know about your history too. Because you know that the colonizer came here, you fought, and you fought just as good as we fought. So that means on the principle of having the same enemy, we're brothers and sisters. Not even do we look alike or, are we following the same cultures, blah, blah, because they accepted the voodoo gift. from the Haitians. They didn't say, "Oh no, we don't mess with that voodoo stuff." You know what I mean? You guys can keep your gift or whatever. They took the voodoo gift. That in the article is called voodoo, right? So guaranteed, the Algonquins are going to be taking some stuff from the Haitians when the Haitians come into the fold, because they know he will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage. And nobody can't deny dark-skinned people the right to be indigenous wherever they're at.
Islam.
Right? That's why they said they used to say back in the day, it ain't where you're at, it's where you're from. And then some people say, it's not where you're from, it's about where you're at. Right? Because it is a thing here first. If you're at your right self here, then where you're from is going to be natural.
And you could explain it. And you could figure
You
it out.
are. You're the extension of the land.
Your extension of the land.
The land and you are one. So you're
Right.
never apart.
But
You know?
what's getting me though is that Algonquin never has never been a republic.
Right.
Algonquin has never been a nation. Algonquin is a language group that even Europeans called it that. It might be of the dialect, and then the dialect in itself is known to be a mixture of, or the dialects are just a mixture of a whole bunch of different languages: Hebrew, Phoenician,
Right.
even like Greek and like Viking languages, and like all over the world. Right? This is a collection of. That's what most of almost all native languages are. Why they have they have Arabic in them, they have this, they have that in them. But what's getting me is that Algonquin was never ever a nation.
Right.
There's Algonquin speakers, but there's no Algonquins.
Algonquins.
Like actually, they do have now people that, it's like Swahili speakers. They're calling them Swahilis now.
Yeah. That's just like,
and vice versa.
Yeah,
but
just
that's
like with
not
the
a nation either.
Right, and vice
exactly.
versa. Or because,
just like the Hebrews.
Right.
Yeah, I'm Hebrew. I'm not a Moor, I'm Hebrew. Right. Well, Hebrew's a language, so you're a language now?
Hebrew's not even a language.
Right.
Hebrew means crossing over.
Crossing over. Right.
Right.
It just means traveler.
Right, exactly.
Right.
It is a verb.
Yeah, it's not a language,
Right.
It's not a culture, it's not a race,
Right.
it's nothing.
Perfect.
I just crossed the road, so I'm a Hebrew. The whole thing is totally ridiculous.
Right, ridiculous.
Totally, it's just
Right.
how you get a language from somebody traveling.
Yeah.
You must have a language before you
and
you went over.
went to wherever you were going.
And when you left there, you came back. You must have a language and a culture.
Right.
Yeah. Right, good point.
Yeah. And that's the same thing that Noble Drawley said. Didn't the people that they say they stole from somewhere have a name and a culture before they stole them
Yeah.
to bring them over here?
Exactly. And when they came, the culture is still there.
Right.
Right. No, it was never lost.
One thing too. We're gonna bring out the information more, but there's the Yoruba, right? Culture and tradition. They have like kings of different regions and stuff like that. They have a king of North America too, right? And then a king of blah blah blah. The king of North America has a little village down in Carolina, but here the thing about it is, from their perspective, Yoruba is in the diaspora, quote unquote. They saying that Yoruba has been in the diaspora, and Jesus is there. You understand what they're saying? They're like the knowledge, the information, the sciences is all in the diaspora. Hence why all of the sciences, you hear them all, Candomblé, Santeria, doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right, but they're more than just saying the culture spread. They're actually saying like it's in the diaspora. That's where it's live. The whole study, the sciences, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and it was weird because they have a king of North America, and it's like everyone in Nigeria now, to become kings of their regions, Obas, they have to have some kind of tie to the West, some kind of financial thing where they can send money back home. They have some kind of schooling from outside, so now they can possibly develop. That's what you can be kings. Like you're trying to develop your place.
Okay.
So you want people of knowledge and science. All that is outside of Nigeria. In terms of course, we got the old stuff and all that stuff, but like that's how. And then we started building on that, and then it was like that's why they come here with the look at they're looking ahead at us as opposed to where we've had this complex to kind of though it's not really looking up. We shouldn't look up and down. But then I'm just saying, like, we had this complex when we'd seen African, right? What we called African. We're looking up and we're expecting them to hand stuff to us and tell us what's going on and fill us in. When they're coming over here saying,
Hey, don't forget,
we fell.
it's Marcus who freed the whole continent.
Right.
Imagine that. This man from St. Anne's Bay ended up in Harlem.
Right.
And it's his spirit that Nkrumah and Secretary got
Yeah.
that freed them.
Yes.
And don't forget everything, like I was saying to you before, nowadays 2012, all the music is us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's soca, it's dancehall,
Still the
it's
same
all of that.
thing.
The continent is looking at us.
Yes.
Right, so we're looking at them and
Go back over there.
Yeah,
and
but
they're
all
like,
the funny things, they're looking at
Yeah.
us here now.
right.
That's how it always been. If you check even the pyramids and stuff.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're started. You could say, in a sense, when they start to use a different material
Mhm.
from land, and now we're using like stone
Stones,
and
yeah.
stuff like this.
Yeah.
But then after it's like the all-star team was always out over here.
It's a
Yeah.
funny situation.
If you check out, like all the pyramids are perfected pyramids. They're all like Shabaka pyramid, the step pyramids.
Mhm.
That was the last one
Saqqara.
there. Saqqara.
Yeah.
That was the last one, and then just you can see the continuation of perfection,
Yeah.
aligning it with the calendar. So the home of the calendar was here, but it's representative of there as well.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's why the language of the calendar is here. But it's still Kemetic calendar.
Yeah.
But it's the Olmec Kemetic calendar.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean, or whatever you want to say. So it was like, in this book, what is it? African presence, in the Americas. Anyway, this brother uncovered a whole bunch of Phoenician in
Yeah.
Burroughs Cave in
Yeah.
Chicago or something. The same thing
Yeah.
Joel Lee went
Yeah.
to, and he dug up a thing.
Yeah,
Pulled
it's in
out.
Ohio. There's some in Nova Scotia too.
So right. That thing, and they were saying that the whole wars and stuff in the Mediterranean with Carthage, and the whole Europe stories and the whole so-called Middle East, that the whole fight was to, you can't not just keep this a secret, but it was like not to pollute this
Mhm.
place, right? Hence why this was always people are fighting, and there's records of like even Christopher Columbus and them were trying to follow Moors past the Straits of Gibraltar, and they would have strategies where they would notice that they were following them, and they'd sink their own ship and jump off, and then the Moroccan emperor always, anyone that did that, he'd fully fund and buy
Fund
you
them
back your
back,
ship.
yeah.
But don't forget,
Mandatory.
Columbus came here. It's a Moor who guided him.
Yeah.
here.
Right. And then eventually, they finally got some. Finally, all right, let me pay you, and he got on into the swing of the things. But it was like this was always like this place where people are always going, right? And so like Phil Valentine was teaching about like To'oi, all the like the major cities and stuff were all sprung off of being universities.
Yeah.
Right? They're all ancient universities, so all the science is there. So when the natives are talking about like the culture being the same as in the voodoo and stuff like that, like they're one and the same thing. It's not even like similar. Oh yeah, well just the earth. Everything is the same.
Same as the same.
Mhm.
Everything.
Yeah.
Completely the same.
Everything.
Yeah.
Like you just instead of saying the natives would have a language to call it mother, or a tree grandfather. Right? And then in the Yoruba maybe they would say Obatala.
Same
The
thing.
same teacher. It's the
Yeah.
same energy, same concept. Still saying the same thing. So, like I was speaking, the Algonquin situation, with the languages. So they're actually, if anything, Haitians.
Yeah. The Algonquins.
The Algonquins.
Yeah.
Because Haiti did establish It
A
is
republic.
a confederacy
Yeah.
to say, yeah, we're acting upon our inalienable rights according to the Constitution, right?
Right.
Which that was the peace treaty between the whole planet.
Right.
Like you even see all African constitutions of the OAU all based theirs off of the United States Constitution. Its principle just set a beacon to the whole world and ended all even slavery amongst yourselves. Like it gave you, okay, what the people can have a declaration of an agreement that this is going to be enforced, or you know what I mean. It's understand like there was never in the history of life such an agreement. There's never been such an agreement amongst civilized people who are now smart. You know, when everyone's kind of dumbed down, it's okay. When people start getting smart, one gets get smart over the other. So with civilization comes a price of responsibility, and with that responsibility is what we fell from, right? And that's what the
Right.
Constitution was put in place to enforce because we fell from that responsibility.
Right.
Humanity in itself.
Right. Islam.
Islam.
Right. So we're gonna go to Black Holocaust 2000. This Bill Jones, R.I.P. to the war correspondent. That's been hitting us up for years. Right. This is on page 11. The great Amos Wilson taught us in his classical book, The Falsification of African Consciousness, that people who are ahistorical, who have little knowledge of history, are people who are more gullible, more easily manipulated, and people who can be more easily adapted to the capitalist machine than people who are historically knowledgeable. History can become a basis for self-criticism, a basis for self-understanding, and more importantly, a basis for the understanding of the motives and psychology of others. So this is the same frequency that Brother Taj talks about, that if you know yourself, you're going to know others. And would make knowing others a lot easier when you know yourself. Right? So just like Vanguard was saying that, you know, the Algonquins are really Haitians. And the Haitians should be the ones adopting the Algonquins into the republic or the constitutional fold of government, not the other way. Right? And then, you know, it comes back to the same thing that you were saying, that the only reason it's the other way around is because of us. Because of our lack of knowing that it's really us. You guys came over to Bering Strait. How are you guys going to tell me, right, that you're bringing me into something when you guys came, when I seen you guys come over to Bering Strait, right? Like I witnessed you coming over. And 300 years later, 500 years later, 5,000 years later, you're now telling me that I'm the foreigner, and then you're adopting me into your confederacy of, you know, all these Aboriginal tribes or whatever, right? And the us being bound to the continent is a repetitive theme, and if we don't recognize what's happening, right, we're going to continue this game that we could never win, right? This is an article from Ogwejiofo Anu, and it's called "A Picture is Worth 1,000 Words." Many people may not be aware of this history, but yes, there are black Russians who descended from their ancestors, probably Egyptians or Ethiopians, who lived there since the time of Colchians, Colchians, 2,000 years ago at least. The ethnic origin of the Abkhazians, Abkhazians, and how Africans arrived in Abkhazia is still a matter of dispute among experts. But by experts, it refers to confused members of the European academia. But the story of the black Abkhazians is yet a living story, as they are not all dead. they or their descendants still live around Adzubza, ADZYUBZHA, ADZYUBZHA. According to Moorish Abzakians, or the Abzakians of African descent themselves, they are the descendants of the Colchians, the inhabitants of the ancient kingdom of Colchis, or Colchis, Colchis, in present-day western Georgia, deep in the Caucasus region. It appears that they have continued in a quiet, unbroken line up to this day, authenticating the stories told by Herodotus, the father of Western history, almost 2,000 years ago. According to Herodotus, some contingents of the soldiers of Sesostris, the great Egyptian pharaoh who conquered the known world, he was said to have left an Egyptian colony near Abzakia, and in the time of Herodotus, the people of Colchis were still predominantly dark brown in color, and they had woolly or frizzy hair. Even then, they still clearly recalled their historical origins as they do today. Another account holds that certain Ethiopians and black Hebrew Israelites had emigrated to the region in a time that was lost to human recollection. An Abkhazian writer, Dmitry Gulia, Dmitry, last name Gulia, in the book History of Abkhazia, compared the place names of Abkhazia and the corresponding names in Ethiopia and claimed that some of the geographical names are identical. Bagadi, Gunma, Tabakur, etc. In 1927, the Russian writer Maxim Gorky, together with the Abkhaz writer Samson Chanba, SamsonChanba, visited the village of Adzibuza and met elderly Africans there. Based on his visit, the comparison of his observation with the published data, he felt that the Ethiopian version of the origin of the Abkhazians of African descent is true. They could also be likely connected with the Moorish population of the Roman Empire, who were among the pioneers of civilization and Roman administration in many regions of Europe. Or they could be connected to the Moro or Nigrilantis Aborigines of Europe, who were Latin in speech and had spread between Iberia, Italy, Serbia, Montenegro, into Bulgaria, Romania, and Russia. One hears echoes of those long-gone Nigri Latinis in dark and forbidden tales about the little black people who haunt the thicker forests and woods of Western and Eastern Europe. Perhaps Abkhazians are their descendants. Whatever be the truth in all these theories, we cannot be denied that there are black people, a Moorish people, living today in the remote areas of the Russian Caucasus region, whose ancestry go back hundreds of years and of whom the world rarely acknowledges. They might actually be the original Caucasians, since every other neighboring tribe came in way after the time of Herodotus, who testified to the presence of Moors in Abkhazia at least 2,000 years ago. Ogwejiofo Anu. And then there's a picture of the Russians, and you know we like to show fezzes around here. So there's the black Russians, and there's the brother with his fez, and just being Moorish. Right.
There's one in Turkey too.
Yeah. Oh,
There's some in Turkey too.
good you mentioned
All
that.
over the place.
I want to say a big up to one of the master teachers. Everybody likes to diss and talk crap about. But big up to Brother Aleem El Bey, because Brother Aleem put me onto this one, and this is for all the Haile Selassie scholars and studiers and people who love Haile Selassie so much and say he brought them everything that they brought. And when we talk about the connection of Haile Selassie to Moors, everybody wants to screw their face and make the eyebrows wrinkle and say that, no, it doesn't go like that. The Triple Crown is not a fez or whatever, right? So here's 1924 Jerusalem. Seated center. Listen to what they're seated center, right? Rastafari visit of Rastafari. Then the regent and heir apparent to Jerusalem, seated with him, are Ethiopian officials who accompanied him to Jerusalem, and an unidentified Turkish group. Right? So this is 1924. Before the whole, he's God and all that. When he was just a regular dude going around. Governor, sovereign. Right? When he was a official.
Prince.
Right?
Prince of whatever province, yes.
Okay? So here's the picture. Big up to Alim on this one. Right? There's the fire in the middle in white. And then there's all the Turkish brothers around him with fezzes on. Right? So it's obvious, and again, we have to remember that when Haile Selassie was 13 years old, he went to the Menelik school. And the Menelik school principal was Hannah Bey. Right? So do research on Hannah Bey, head of the Menelik school Haile Selassie went to. And then that'll tell you that he was brought up in more science and he knows what's good. That's why he had the Triple Crown, which is a fez.
And the amazing thing is, the general of the army during Menelik's time, that's the Battle of Adwa. Even he was the general of the army before Menelik and after. During Haile Selassie's time was Ras Alula. Right. Ras Alula, as you even in that book they talk about it too. He was Ras Johannes's general, which is the emperor, 2 emperors before Haile Selassie. He was a general even then. But he's so big, like he was even bigger than the kings. But his ambition was not for the throne. He was just kind of more the general. He represented more, anybody around the region. The king had to give him a title. Ras Johannes, or Emperor Johannes IV, trying to give him a title, and there's no title that he could give him but his own throne. So they made up a title for him. His name is Ras Alula, the Turk Basha, and that's a Moorish Turk. Basha is like saying Mufti, or
big scholar, okay.
a big scholar,
like Effendi or whatever.
Yeah, sometimes even there's war, because in the how Moors used to travel is like the warriors and the scholars travel in one and the same. Just like Europeans, everyone followed. They all followed the same thing. But yeah, it was his highest tradition was Turk Basha, and then they asked in the book they asked for its definition, and it's coming. Obviously, it's not a Amerindian word. When they're like, why are you choosing that? And remember, they were against, especially Ras Johannes was fighting against the remnants of the Mahdi in Sudan. Okay. Mahdi has long gone dead, but he still has little bands that are still alive, and they were fighting with the Emperor of Ethiopia. So there was a Islam, Coptic Christianity kind of fight going on. So, like, you know what I mean? But then Ras Alula was sometimes sometimes a Muslim, sometimes a Christian. Like, he didn't really care. It wasn't really about that for him. But the point is that they would give him that title in a Christian kingdom, the oldest Christian kingdom, right? And that his title would be of a so-called Moorish one, right? And there's drawings and stuff of Ras Johannes, and you could see, like if you see some of the crowns that they have, Ethiopian crowns, go look at them now. Some of the smaller region crowns and stuff like that, they almost all have a tassel. Like they're gold, they're smaller, they're more even shaped like this or in between this and the actual tall crown. Right? And they actually have all this gold and stuff, and they have even leather in there, and they all have tassels.
So
all
it's
of
a
them.
fence.
Right, it's a fez.
Yes.
Right? Factual that all these crowns are all representing the same thing. It's like factual. So it's like Abyssinia is a good example of Christian, Muslim, doesn't matter. And it's always been like that. Even the whole founding of it, like the Prophet Muhammad and the Negus of Abyssinia at the time,
It's Harar.
Harar.
Harar. Yeah.
Harar.
Harar province.
Harar province. What happened was he went to Harar, the Prophet Muhammad.
No, what it is, when they were under attack in Mecca,
Yes.
he sent like 25 or something
Yeah.
to Harar,
Yes.
to the Negus. He said, this man, he's a Christian, but he's very righteous,
Mhm.
so you can stay by him, he'll protect you. And how he got tested, because what happened, the Meccans came and said, listen, will I give you 10,000? Send these 24 guys with us. And he said, no, they're under my protection. Because he's the man in charge at the time, they just have to go back home. Yeah.
I see. So a lot of the like Garvey ignited the whole Pan-Africanism around the moment when Haile Selassie did this to show the whole world that there's a brother, you know what I mean, like that remnants, that Moorish presence is still ruling on the planet.
Straight up.
You know what I mean? Straight up. And Haile Selassie opened it up. And so, which was showing that even their so-called kings, right? So even all the royalty and all throughout Europe and all the 72 nations they say came or whatever, all of them, and it's factual, documented, they all had to renew their allegiance to this royal lineage of something. Queen Elizabeth and all them actually trace their blood. They want to say, yeah, they come from, and this is the gap. This is the Moorish legacy. This, what they're calling what Rastas believe is, the seed of Solomon and the throne of David. This is that knowledge. This is the knowledge, the science that was handed and passed down, and then this is what they trace themselves to, the Moors. So the fact that Haile Selassie is representing the Moorish Empire that's still alive.
They get mad, but if you look at it from, number one, if you do research into it, they don't call themselves Ethiopians. They call themselves Habashi.
Right.
We're Habasha from Habashi.
Yes.
Habashi, when you check it out, Rastafari is on the mother's side.
Mm-hmm.
So he have no claim to the throne. Lijiasu is the rightful ruler. That's who Menelik said.
Mm-hmm.
He was displaced.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they see, even the whole point of this Queen Elizabeth trying to lay claim, it don't make no sense, because she is from the Medici son there.
Charlotte?
Yeah, Charlotte Sophia's husband.
Yeah. Emmanuel?
Right? What's his?
Edward.
No.
Charlotte's. I thought
Charlotte Sophia's husband. Whoever Charlotte Sophia's husband is. That is who the Queen. Now, remember, the Medici had this son with the Habashi woman.
Yeah.
Right. He married Charlotte Sophia. He married the daughter of the Habsburg Empire. They got 14 daughters. One of them is Charlotte Sophia.
And that became.
It's her son who is the great grandfather of this queen. So I don't know how they. My whole point is that their whole thing again is fraud. Because they can't show nothing.
Color.
To know more, nothing.
Right.
Their lineage.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they're.
Yeah.
The seat comes from the Moors, but
yes.
the actual individual.
Hijack the
They're not
hijacked.
They're hijacked because even he.
Yeah.
Is not royalty.
Yeah.
What happened also too, if you look at Tewodros, the emperor before Johannes, they kidnapped Alameyu, Tewodros' son, and they grew him up in the palace.
Okay.
And he went through all kind of tortures, and he died of a heart attack. A broken heart.
Come on.
Right?
Yeah.
So the thing is that there's a lot of speculation on there, like trying to breed this youth into their bloodline.
Right, yeah.
So that they can get
so they
the
can
to get the legitimacy of the throne.
Yeah.
Don't know if they're successful.
What I'm gonna the one about Turkey, it goes deep. I can bring the information for you with a picture.
Yeah.
What they're saying now is the quote unquote European scholars, the oldest civilization they have in Europe and in the world. You could probably Google it online. I forget what the name of it is, but I could get it. I have the picture.
Mm.
If you go to South Africa, there's something called Hottentot Venus. It
Yeah.
looks like a sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
The one in Turkey is identical to that. Identical. So what you see is the same culture.
Right, right.
Right.
So when they're saying that we're European and whatever, nothing about it don't make sense. Europa is a Moorish
Moorish,
princess.
Right.
That
Right?
Right.
speak.
And
that
then-
has to be clear.
Right.
Still.
And
yeah.
then
You're right.
If now the earliest evidence that you have, right, is a quote unquote African woman with African physique.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where are you in that?
Yeah.
Right.
And where she is in Turkey. But you see, here's the whole thing we got to deal with history. When you go to the Turks, what's the history of the Turk? He's a Russian.
Yeah.
He's really a Russian from way up north,
Right.
and he came
He
in.
came down, yeah.
So what we're
Yeah.
doing is now, we are just reclaiming ourselves. This is what I say, once
Right.
you know who
Once
you are,
yeah,
so,
you
okay,
make the claim. Right.
there's auntie and a family up there, right?
Mm.
So when you say you're Turk, can't be, because Turkish is Russian. If you go in like, because as a Muslim, you'll hear stuff like when they're talking about Afghanistan
Yeah.
or Turkmenistan, they'll say, oh, in that province is the Turks. So I was like, but
Yeah.
that's not in Turkey.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like they'll say they call them Turkomen. So
Right.
oh, those are
Yeah.
the Turkomen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not in Turkey. You're
Yeah.
somewhere way up in Russia.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you go now, see, here's a point. Those people, when you push them on the history, they always tell you, no, we didn't come from here. We came here after certain years.
Right,
There
right.
was a famine and we came down and we took over. Right? But when you go into the archaeology, the deeper you get, it's the blacker you get.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's like they say you go into an Arab kitchen.
Yeah.
All these light-skinned guys in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you go back,
Yeah.
the kitchen and the person cooking the food.
Yeah,
back, back, back,
Real
back.
talk. Real talk.
Now check this out.
Real talk.
I have a friend from Senegal. In Senegal, they have something called
It's like the home right there.
chicken yassa. Right?
Okay.
Chicken yassa.
Okay.
Chicken yassa is lots of olives, lots of mustard, onions, and olives. So I remember I went there, I had the food, and a European guy wrote it up, and he asked them, this looks like it's Moorish, it's North African. How could that be when you're from Senegal? So it puzzled me till I didn't know who I was
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Till I get to find out. When they talk about North Africa, they're talking about us.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
a name that they
That
changed.
they
Yeah.
right, right.
Because Marrakesh is us from Timbuktu.
Right, right,
Right?
Right.
right.
All Fez is
Yeah,
us.
us.
So we're the ones who move up.
We're Ghana.
That's right.
Right.
That's not even the name of the place. But
Right,
that's
right,
what we are.
but that's
Ghana,
what we are,
Mali,
right,
Sangha.
right.
Ancient Ghana.
Yeah,
right?
something,
But
even
yeah,
that. That's
yeah,
another
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
even that, all of that is us. And then we moved up.
Right.
And then there was brothers up there too.
Now
On
we're already
the
up.
other side.
Right.
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 So the more you know yourself, you're like,
The
we
more
claiming Turkey. We
Right.
claiming Iraq.
every
Mhm.
Claim
Right,
Jordan.
right,
Claim
right.
this.
why not?
Yeah.
Hey, they asked Haile Selassie. Remember they asked him, "Yo, whoa, are you black? You know what do you say about the black?" He's like, "What's that?
They don't know that.
You don't have that thing
Yeah.
there. Like, what's that?"
He's Amhara.
Right, exactly.
He's Amhara.
Before that, they asked Menelik the same question, and he said he's Caucasian,
Yeah, that's
and
another
that's
one.
where that
Yeah.
comes from. What you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
No,
And he's the darkest.
no, but
Yeah.
here's a funny that you brought that up. Check this out. Are you Igbo?
No,
Okay.
Ashanti.
Okay,
I
here it is.
can't. Pardon.
Yoruba.
Oh, Yoruba? Oh.
I'll never forget this.
Pardon, yeah, I
We were in
thought
a
you were
meeting
fine.
once with a Igbo brother, and he says, "I have an auntie, Becky." So what does that mean? We call her Becky because Becky means white in Igbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what that means is she's like this sister's complexion.
For
Yeah.
real.
All it means is a contrast.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So-
yeah.
All of it, Nigeria now, yellow sissy, right? Yellow sissy is like a light-skinned girl.
Right, right.
Okay.
So everybody looks like him,
Yeah.
but how the genetics go with Africa, we got all the
Yeah,
combinations.
yeah.
So some come out like her, some come out looking like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what they say is we're white as compared to him,
Right.
but they're not
Yeah.
white
But they're
European.
not white.
Yeah,
Europe. Right, right, right.
So
right.
I asked a sister who's a Fanti too, and she says there's a name that they. So Yorubas have a name for it.
Yeah.
Fantis have a name for it. I was even talking to a brother from the Congo. There's a word that Jamaicans use. How do they call yellow man again? There's a name.
Hi,
You know, see,
yellow.
there's a name that they call yellow man. Something moon something.
No, because I've heard all of them, but I
There's a
haven't
name
heard-
that they call him. It's something with an M.
Actually, on if he knows you.
Yeah. What's one of the words where they call light skinned people in Jamaica? Like old time word.
Muanzu. It's something
Like yellow man.
Yellow man was albino.
Yeah, but they have a name that they call
Not
him.
not the reggae man, just any man. Like see how they call him yellow man because that's any light skinned man you see or
I'll get
like
the
that, they will call
I'll
him
get the
hey,
word
yellow
written
man,
down.
what
Yeah.
God?
Yeah.
My friend from the
next word.
If a light skinned person, sometimes they say, oh, he's a brownie.
Yeah,
That's a new one. It's an old time
We're
word.
trying to
Correct.
figure out
It's
some
an old-time
old
word.
time one.
So what the guy was saying, my friend from the Congo, he said he was surprised. He goes, because we have the same word in the Congo. And it means the
real?
same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
He says it means somebody who's a light complexion.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you hear it in the speaker, that's what it means. It means
Mixed breed, eh?
it's a
Yeah,
kind of a
not
like
that
that,
one
but it's a word with an M. I have it written down. I'll bring
Not
it for you next
mulatto,
week.
but yeah,
Yeah.
go on.
And then what he said is that when we use that word in our like Trinity, we say that person red.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Automatically we know. He said, oh,
We
that's
know
a
it's a
red
light-
man.
it's a light
right?
skin.
Yeah, red
But
man.
here's the funny. That word Becky, Grenadians use it and Vincentians use it. Yeah. There's even, let me tell you, I with my cousin at Kind Grenada, and the brother is your complexion. And you know what they call him? Becky neck. You know what Becky neck mean? White nigger. Because he light skin, right? So everybody
Yeah.
know what I
They
mean.
know.
Yeah.
So when Menelik say
Yeah.
he white, meaning he's
Caucasian.
lighter
He's
Yeah.
like than the Arab.
than the
Yeah,
Omo.
yeah.
See, remember I was telling you last week.
Oromo.
Peace,
Fam.
peace, bro.
Yo, good work, Andrew.
You already know.
All right,
It's
peace,
a
bro.
secret. Don't tell the Wu-Tang.
Yeah, the bottom of Ethiopia, Surma,
Yeah.
right? Omo,
No Romo.
jet black. Not a Roma, no, Omo.
Omo, eh?
Omo, Surma, jet black. So when Menelik say he white, as compared to those,
Yeah.
because those ones black like the chair.
He said, and he also said he's the Caucasian, but this one was saying the Caucasus Mountains.
Are you not about?
The Caucasus Mountains are actually the are ancestors of these people,
Yeah,
and that they're more. So I was just saying like, yeah, even,
even, yeah.
and that's what's
Because
sticking
that's
in
the
my
thing
mind.
in the Herodotus says is when they went and they seen the people in cultures, they say, what are these black people doing here? There must be a garrison left by so-and-so pharaoh.
Yeah.
Right? So then how come white people claim... See, the whole thing with white people, that's my whole point. You got to know who you are. White people say, we're Aryan. But you can't be Aryan.
Yeah.
Because the Aryan is the Iranian, is the Persian.
Right.
And his skin ain't white. So who are you?
Yeah.
So I remember John Henry Clark said, we don't know who this guy is. Because everywhere he say he's from,
He's from.
when you
go there.
But
It's
that's
us
the
there.
trick.
Right there.
That's the
Black
trick.
skin there.
But here's the thing. I think that's what they're purposely doing. Like
Mhm.
that's how they can get tied to someone without really,
Really being-
respecting the
Yeah.
ancient foremothers and
Yes.
forefathers.
Yes.
So they'll say that they're
South Africa.
or no, yeah, South African. That's a perfect one. Yo, or they'll say they're Israel.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the weird watered down line that they could play, so that, like, for example, Hitler was saying that he's Aryan,
Yeah.
right? But that's actually saying that you're more indigenous to that place,
Yeah.
right?
And then they come
And
from...
then kicking out the Jewish people
Mhm.
who are the students of the Moors in Spain,
Yeah.
based on their knowledge they do, right?
Right.
So it's like they're just playing the game. They're both not wanting
Not
to
wanting-
rate
yeah,
the Moors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they're both fighting against each other, and then they have a new one every time.
Yeah. It's total madness. Total madness.
Yeah, man.
How could you be an Aryan and you're a Saxon? You got a Saxon name.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're from somewhere
Yeah,
else.
Can't be.
You're not a Persian. You got no Persian name.
Can't
Right.
be.
Who are you?
Can't
Right. Right. As we're winding down, couple more
be. Nice.
things to touch on.
I wanted to photography this
Which one?
one. The Russian one.
That's right.
Wave some paper in people's face.
Yeah. All right. So bottomry. A bottomry or bottomage is an arrangement in which the master of a ship borrows money upon the bottom or keel of it, so as to forfeit the ship itself to the creditor, if the money with interest is not paid at the time appointed at the ship's safe return. This occurs, for example, where the ship needs urgent repairs during the course of its voyage, or some other emergency arises, and it is not possible for the master to contact the owner to arrange funds, allowing the master to borrow money on the security of the ship or the cargo by executing a bond. Where both cargo and ship are hypothecated, the bond is called a bottomry bond. Where both the ship and its cargo are hypothecated, the relationship is called respondentia. Due to the bottomry bond's relatively low priority as against other liens in the event of a libel against the ship, the use of bottomry bonds declined greatly in the 19th century, and the subject is today of interest only to legal historians. Hypothecation. Hypothecation is the practice where a borrower pledges collateral to secure a debt, or a borrower, as a condition precedent to a loan, has a third party, usually an affiliate, pledge collateral for the borrower. The borrower retains ownership of the collateral, but it is hypothetically controlled by the creditor in that he has the right to seize possession if the borrower defaults. A common example occurs when a consumer enters into a mortgage agreement in which the consumer's house becomes collateral until the mortgage loan is paid off. The detailed practice and rules of regulating hypothecation vary depending on context and on the jurisdiction where it takes place. In the U.S., the legal right for the creditor to take ownership of the collateral if the debtor defaults is called a lien. Right?
I'm not sure, I think mortgage in French has it's something like this hypothecate word. I'm
Yeah.
not too sure.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I thought that the word mortgage came from the French to begin with. So
Okay,
it's
okay,
kinda
right.
weird
Right.
the way the language goes, you know?
Okay. We're gonna go to an email that we received today. This is just so Moors can see how serious it is when we stand up as Moors for rights and etc. Right? Islam, Brother Kudro. Oh, this is from Sister Mohana Bey. Islam, Brother Kudro. Several days ago, I was contacted by unknown officials claiming to be a part of the government. They informed me that they were not happy with my song, No Shit No More, and the fact that I have been speaking out on government corruption. They told me to immediately abort my propaganda,
What?
or they will slander my name and post supposedly compromising photos. When I responded and said that I did not agree with my First Amendment rights being violated and there can be charges brought up for them threatening me, they responded by saying that she has outstanding warrants and she can be picked up on charges. I have had several strange calls since then with breathing and whispers saying we are always watching you. Right? This for a little song. You know, she goes in on the song still. She like bashes people and stuff in the song, right?
Okay.
But it comes back to the same thing about the color,
Yeah.
right? She's not singing the song as, you know, Beyonce or whatever. She's singing the song as a bae.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different game
Yes.
being played, right? As far as, you know, this song, No Shit No More, right? So you go check No Shit No More, Mohana Bey.
How do you spell Mohana?
Mohana.
Yeah. I'm gonna look for it.
Mohana
now.
Bey, yeah.
Good for you, sister.
Right? All right. So this is just for people to know, you know, like, cause the sister, you know, she like comes to class and stuff like that, you know, the online, you know, and she
Yeah.
builds and stuff. We build, and you know, when she told me about it, you know, first thing in my mind, send something so I could talk about it on class, right?
Yeah.
Because it's imperative that Moors actually recognize how much power they have, right? They have to recognize how much power they have, right? If we recognize it, yo, Mufti, yo, you guys getting hype over there. It's all good, right? So now when she brought this to my attention, the first thing that came to my mind was when brother Amore went to court, right? When Amore went to court, same thing. Unknown officials coming up to them, asking them, "Yo, are you guys free man on the land? And is this what you guys do? Are you guys part of the free man on the land movement and all this type of stuff?"
Oh yeah.
Right? Because it's getting to the point where there has to be a distinction made, right? That not everybody who looks like us, that talks out against color of law and color of authority and misprision of treason and all these things, are in the jurisdiction for these people who are committing these acts to come at, right? And again, learning from the North Carolina judge that told all those European foreigners that if you're gonna abuse, you better put your property and stuff in other people's name, right? We know why they're gonna approach her like unknown officials and not put their name on the record and all that type of stuff or the phone call, because right, suits could fly for practicing color of law, because again, she's talking about people actually calling her, right? They're not sending a message to her, they're calling her phone directly. Like, yeah, how you doing? We watching you, we're whispering in the phone and stuff like that, right? That is high level, like espionage and James Bond and stuff like that.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That's not so. Continue doing the work. If you're out there and you got the song, heard the song, make sure you push the song so that the word could get out that the sister's not talking anything crazy. She's not anti-government, sovereign citizen of the land. She's a Moorish American, and she has a talent of singing, and she's conscious of herself. And just like we were talking about with going back to that first one, misprision of treason, that we have a duty, right? It is the duty of every good citizen, knowing of a treason or felony having been committed, to inform a magistrate, right? Silently, to observe the commission of a felony without using any endeavors to apprehend the offender is misprison. Right? Seeing something and not doing anything about it is misprison. She saw something, did something about it. And obviously, they're mad at that. Right? We got about 8 minutes left. Right? Wanted to just read some constitutional cases where color of law, rights of people, etc., are being expressed through the Supreme Court. Right? So we know that it's legit. We're not doing nothing wrong. We're not the ones practicing color. We're actually standing for the law. And based on us standing for the law and us practicing jurisprudence and due process and all that, occasionally we're going to get attacked because we are the monkey wrench to this whole corporate plan, this corporate machine that they have going right now. All right? So this is Davis versus Burris. A judge must be acting within his jurisdiction as to subject matter and person to be entitled to immunity from civil action for his acts. Right? A judge must be acting within his jurisdiction. So if a judge is not acting within their jurisdiction, then they're not immune from civil action for the color of law, because once you act outside of your jurisdiction, you're doing that under color, right? Under color of authority, under color of law, etc. Right? The courts are not bound by an officer's interpretation of the law under which he presumes to act. The courts are not bound by an officer's interpretation of the law under which he presumes to act. So if he's acting under the Highway Traffic Act, saying that, well, we stopped this guy because, he didn't have a license and he made a right turn when he can't make a right turn, and he was parked somewhere he's not supposed to park, right? They are acting under an interpretation. They're not acting under what it is. That everybody has a right to travel once they're safe and they're not harming or injuring anybody out there, right? All law, rules, and practices which are repugnant to the Constitution are void. All laws, rules, and practices which are repugnant to the Constitution are void. Note, by law, a judge is a state officer. The judge then acts not as a judge, but as a private individual. When a judge acts as a trespasser of the law, when a judge does not follow the law, the judge loses subject matter jurisdiction, and the judge's orders are not voidable, but void, and are of no legal force or effect. No man in this country is so high that he is above the law. No officer of the law may set that law at defiance with impunity. All the officers of the government, from the highest to the lowest, are creatures of the law and are bound to obey it. So they can't make up their own stuff and do what they want to you. Right? Slavery is voluntary, and voluntary slavery is legal. Right? There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of his or her exercise of constitutional rights. No penalty or sanction could be imposed for exercise of rights.
Exactly. Which is what these characters are trying to do with this.
Which is what they're doing. Right? No state shall convert a liberty into a license and charge a fee thereof. If I have the right to religion, if I have the right to religion, nobody can convert my religion into a license and then charge me a fee to be Muslim. Because those are rights that people are born with, and you can't touch those, right? And then you could just do your research on constitutional cases in favor of constitutional rights, and you'll find lots and lots and lots and lots of cases. Last but not least, January 12th and 13th. January 12th and 13th, in honor of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the 100 years of the Prophet, we have Summit of the Moors, operating as one economic unit. Topics: 25-year agenda for the community, food security, the administrative process, understanding trusts, collective economics, birth records, gold and silver purchasing, aquaponics, banking, land purchase, technology, private side sessions. This summit is to apply immediate strategy and solutions. So for all those people out there, Negro, black, colored people included, that think or believe or assume that Moorish knowledge and Moorish science is not something practical that you can apply to your everyday life starting tomorrow, as soon as you find out about this, you need to contact Brother Diallo Sekou, DIALLOSEKOU.com. You can contact AbundanceChild.com and NBCTV1.com for information.
NBC.
And yeah, I don't know if it's Summit of the Moors on Facebook, right? So we're catering to everybody, all right? And we're just doing our job as fellow Moors that are in support of activity, putting it out there So Moors know that active Moors support active Moors. So Islam to Brother Diallo Sekou for seeing that there needs to be a summit of the Moors in Jacksonville, Florida, and setting it up and making it happen. All right. Again, the website diallosekou.com, diallosekou.com, and I want to give honorable mention to Kadira Bey and Dr. Alim Bey, Duria Bey, German Shannon Ill, the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, Taharka Amina El Bey, Abundance Child, Sundiada Amen El, Asar Diala Sekou Abur El, Sharif Noble, and everybody else that's involved in making the Summit of the Moors happen. Jacksonville, Florida, 1625 North Pearl Street, 706-284-9808. 706-284-9808. And don't forget to go support Sister's track. No shit no more. Read that. That was from Mohana today.
Oh, see, yeah.
All right. Summit of the Moors operating as one economic unit. And there's the flyer. Don't forget you can go to Summit of the Moors on Facebook. And once again, big shout out to Brother Diallo Sekou for continuing to be active. Make sure you check out some of the brother's classes on YouTube. He has classes on there dealing with Moorish history, Moorish science, foundation of religion, etc. So we're gonna close out. You want to say Islam to all the Moors that was online? Yeah, I read.
You ready?
Yeah, no, that was just for you because you were over there when I.
Oh yeah, she sent me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna close out Islam Moors. Give thanks for being on class today. And one more thing too. Plug one more book. Make sure you go pick up Behold the Pale Horse, because what I just realized in Behold the Pale Horse is that the first chapter of this book, talks about silent weapons for quiet wars, and it doesn't say so in the chapter, but it's almost the full excerpt of King Alfred Plan, right? And William Cooper, right? Copyright 1991. So since 1991, Europeans been telling y'all about King Alfred Plan, but because he's European, nobody pay attention, even though they killed him for this book. Shut him up. All right? So make sure you go support getting knowledge. We don't watch messengers. We just get the message. Islam. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice. Allah is our protector.
Allah is our protector.
Our guide.
And
our salvation. By night. And by day. Through his and her holy prophet. Noble Jew Ali. Islam. Good class, Morris.
Good job, Morris.
Peace.
7.
Islam to the 7 Moors online. We already know. Salute.